discussing Stanley Kubrick, the movie Dr. Strangelove, and also other post-apocalyptic movies. Stanley Kubrick, what a great director. My favorite movie director of all times. Got started with the classic Spartacus in 1960 and then made Dr. Strangelove, which you can see segments of right here in this folder. Dr. Strangelove in 1964, and the movie was a pretty big success and allowed Stanley to move on and create his classic 2001 A Space Odyssey. If you have not seen any of these Stanley Kubrick movies, please rent them from Netflix today. That's what Netflix is for. 2001 A Space Odyssey, and then a second Kubrick movie we'll be discussing for this class, A Clockwork Orange in 1971, really breaking down the barriers of violence in movies and how quickly movies got violent in the late 60s, early 70s. A Clockwork Orange, extremely violent movie, but very groundbreaking movie. So we have Dr. Strangelove that we're discussing in this folder, and then we have 2001 A Space Odyssey, and then Clockwork Orange, all Stanley Kubrick movies. And then moving on through the 70s and 80s, finally we come to The Shining. We will be discussing The Shining in this class, also in 1980. The Shining. Stanley Kubrick also did a few other very important movies. Full Metal Jacket, a fine Vietnam War movie, one of my favorite Vietnam War movies, featuring R. Lee Ermey, famous now for his that Locked and Loaded show. I'm not sure the exact title. R. Lee Ermey, the little Marine guy. Gotta love R. Lee Ermey. Full Metal Jacket, also the Tom Cruise Nicole Kidman movie, I believe, where they met and got married later on, right? Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise. Eyes Wide Shut. So there you have a few of the Stanley Kubrick movies. Spartacus, Dr. Strangelove, 2001 A Space Odyssey, A Clockwork Orange, The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, Eyes Wide Shut. Also Barry Lyndon. I'm not familiar with the movie Barry Lyndon. Perhaps you've seen it. But the unique thing about Stanley Kubrick, he didn't make a lot of movies, yet all of his movies, he really tried to go in different directions in his movies, so they were all quite different, and most of them very successful and very groundbreaking. So Stanley Kubrick, what a great director. Passed away in 1999, no longer with us. Stanley Kubrick. We'll be discussing him more as we go through the class, discussing Clockwork Orange and The Shining, both to be discussed in this class. But we want to discuss the idea, the topic of what is happening in Dr. Strangelove. Again, some of the topics we keep coming back to from the 50s, early 60s, idea of the mixing of races, which was not approved of by the powers that be before the mid-50s, but now we have Blackboard Jungle showing the different races in the classroom. We have the Lucy show, I Love Lucy, with Desi Arnaz, the Cuban American, and Lucille Ball, a mixed race couple. And of course also the music, the huge surge of black music, and also some Latin music with who did the La Bamba and Oh Donna, Richie Valens, and then in the 60s, Carlos Santana, still with us today. But then also this idea of the Cold War, Russia and China, communist countries getting the nuclear bomb and threatening us with nuclear destruction became quite a topic in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. And Dr. Strangelove deals with these issues, the idea of assured mutual destruction. We have enough nuclear bombs to completely destroy Russia and wipe out Russia. Russia has enough nuclear bombs to completely destroy and wipe out the United States. In the early 60s, this was a huge deal. John F. Kennedy was our president from 1960 to 63 when he was assassinated. And John F. Kennedy really faced down the Russian Premier Nikita Khrushchev a number of times. Khrushchev attempted to put nuclear missiles in Cuba, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Kennedy did not allow it. But this was a very scary time. We all had bomb shelters and were worried about the upcoming nuclear war. Fortunately, it never came. Communism is now gone, and now we have terrorism to worry about. Isn't that great? but assured mutual destruction, that we could destroy Russia, Russia could destroy us. So the idea was neither one of us would start the war because it would basically destroy the world. But this was a big concern. This is what the movie is about, Dr. Strangelove. But this idea, but then the idea of the post-apocalyptic world. What would the world be like after we had this nuclear war that destroyed much of the life on planet Earth and much of the civilization on planet Earth? So we have the idea of the post-apocalyptic movie, the idea of the world after a huge nuclear war or other huge disaster. And some of the movies that I want you to go into YouTube, you to go into YouTube and check out. Also go into Google and read something about this, because you'll have to discuss one of these movies in your discussion forum. Some of the post-apocalyptic movies that have been popular over the last 40 years or so. A Boy and His Dog with Don Johnson. Do you remember Don Johnson? Some of you more mature people from Miami Vice, Don Johnson, A Boy and His Dog, 1975. Mel Gibson and his famous Mad Max movies, the most popular one being Beyond Thunderdome, Mad Max and Beyond Thunderdome, 1985. And third one I want to talk about is a very good movie, The Postman with Kevin Costner. Kevin Costner sometimes gets a bad rap, but he had some very good movies. Dances with Wolves and also The Postman, I think, was a very good movie. Again, the post-apocalyptic world, the post-apocalyptic world. All three of these movies deal with the wanderer, the one person who goes out and wanders the desert or the woods in this post-apocalyptic world, just trying to survive and having various adventures. A Boy and His Dog, Don Johnson. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, Mel Gibson. And The Postman, 1997, with Kevin Costner, exploring the post-apocalyptic world. Now, we've had a couple recently also. We've got two newer movies just out in the last year or two, and these two new movies, The Road with Viggo Mortensen, rose to fame in the Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings movie. Viggo Mortensen and The Road. And last but not least, another very good movie that I enjoyed immensely, The Book of Eli. I think The Book of Eli was one of the better of all of these movies. The Book of Eli, I'd have to say The Book of Eli and The Postman, my two favorites. So you do need to go into Google and read up on one of these movies, and then go into YouTube and find some YouTube clips of one of these movies. Again, A Boy and His Dog, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, The Postman with Kevin Costner, The Road, a newer movie with Viggo Mortensen, and The Book of Eli, again, a very new movie with Denzel. So that will be part of the discussion forum. I will be talking about these movies, and if we still feel the same way about this post-apocalyptic world and kind of what has replaced this and what we are afraid of today, as a little critical thinking exercise. So we have Stanley Kubrick and all his great movies. We're going to be watching Dr. Strangelove, A Clockwork Orange, and The Shining for this class and discussing them. And Full Metal Jacket we're not discussing, and 2001: A Space Odyssey, again, we're not discussing, but two other of his very great movies. Stanley Kubrick, our greatest director in my opinion. The idea of the post-apocalyptic movie really starting with Dr. Strangelove, and then moving on to the 5 movies I just discussed. And so be sure you're checking out all that stuff. Go into this folder, watch the video excerpts from Dr. Strangelove, and read the articles, and then go into the discussion forum and start a thread. Be sure it's in by Friday midnight for maximum points. And it looks like we're up to 9 minutes, so I guess we can quit now.